All right. Yo, well, Clement, in full, Clement Yow Mulalap, Federated States of Micronesia, prefers to be called Yo. For people that people should know that people should know that he likes to be called by the name that he wants to be called to by. Um, yeah, good friend. Actually, I would call it serendipity how we met. Like S was SB48 in Bonn. By coincidence, we had this conversation at a lunch table, and then it spiraled off into BB&J platform and everything else. Um, if you want to talk about it, we can talk about it. But obviously, I should ask you the question that I ask everyone in this show so far. Where is indigenous knowledge going right now? What were your first thoughts when I sent you that question? And welcome to the show, by the way.
Well, thank you very much, Kazali. Can you hear me? Are we good?
Yeah, perfect.
No, I very much appreciate being invited to participate, and I've been really enjoying the stream so far, including images of you eating. And on that note, happy birthday.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Oh, like it. Chocolate, probably.
It's vegan blackout chocolate cupcake. The first time we met was over yogurt. I could not find any yogurt nearby.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, true. Hey, yeah.
This is close enough. It's dessert. It's close enough. I haven't had my dinner yet, so I'm going to save this for later. But I'll be thinking of you as I enjoy this.
By the way, before I forget, your chocolate stack right now, how is it looking?
Oh no!
Should we send some more or?
Well, you don't have to send any more. I've been rationing them very, very severely.
Dude, my niece watching this, she would like, oh, send him some more, like, because she doesn't want you to ration the whole supply. Like, she wants you to, I don't know, eat as much as possible, probably. But yeah.
Well, I really appreciate that. But the next time we meet, hopefully,
we'll, definitely. Yeah,
we'll exchange some goods.
Mm-hmm. Huh.
I really appreciate the opportunity to participate in the stream, and I've been thinking a little bit about your question, and actually I want to echo quite a bit what one of your previous guests said, Kaeden, I think his name is, about the fact that indigenous knowledge is here. It's always been here, and universe willing, it will continue to be here. It's not going anywhere in terms of going away. What I've been seeing more and more is the rest of the international community beginning to acknowledge the value and the importance of indigenous knowledge and its application to a whole range of international processes and work, particularly pertaining to the natural environment, although not limited to the natural environment. And so it's been exciting to see that sort of acknowledgement turn into a bit of a groundswell, but it's also going through some growing pains, I think, this sort of interaction between indigenous knowledge and its holders on the one hand, and the rest of the international community trying to understand that. In that sense, I really appreciate the work that you do and your colleagues do in a whole bunch of different fora, pushing forward indigenous knowledge. And this notion that indigenous knowledge is not just a bunch of information or not just a bunch of data sets. That's very important, and those are very valuable contributions. But it's also values and practices and worldviews that go along with generating and transmitting and applying a lot of this knowledge, which I think are important aspects that should be reflected in the various international processes and instruments that are receptive to indigenous knowledge.
Any thoughts on like what are the major hurdles that you experience that you see when it comes to international recognition or respect or consideration of indigenous knowledge? What is something that indigenous peoples can do to overcome that hurdle?
Well, one major hurdle, and I referenced this a little bit, is this idea that at least when we're dealing with governments, states, parties that don't necessarily have that tradition of engagement with Indigenous knowledge, they are initially comfortable only as far as they're only comfortable with going initially with accepting Indigenous knowledge as a source of information, as a source of data that they can assess in some way, that they can evaluate in some way, and use alongside science to manage different things about the natural environment, for example. But it's uncomfortable for them to go beyond that, to talk about stewardship, to talk about intergenerational connections with the land and the ocean and the values that are transmitted, and to see how those values and practices can be guiding principles or approaches for the different measures and approaches and activities that are being regulated by governments, for example. And so it's that step further that's challenging, which is why I think it's very important for Indigenous peoples in particular to be able to participate actively in all these different spaces that are open to and that impact their knowledge and where they live, and to be able to participate in these spaces, to be able to explain where they come from, what their worldviews are, how they generate and use this knowledge, and how useful this knowledge can be. Just having a seat at the table, it's such an important thing. Even if you have to make the table huge, make sure there are seats there for everybody.
Yeah. Okay. You obviously, you're now you're with FSM Mission New York, doing a lot of third committee, like sixth committee as well, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you about all these committees, obviously, but what are the I'm very curious about that. Any potential blind spots? BB&J was a blind spot to Indigenous peoples for a very long time. Is there anything that you see right now or developing that might be of interest to Indigenous peoples aside from BB&J?
A lot of the focus at the UN level, at least, with respect to Indigenous peoples and Indigenous knowledge, has to do with the environment, with the natural environment, and how to manage the natural environment, the activities pertaining to the natural environment. Even then, like you said, there was a bit of a blind spot, I guess, if you can call it that, or in terms of BB&J, because again, a lot of governments, a lot of states did not think that Indigenous knowledge was applicable to areas beyond national jurisdiction, to the high seas, for example, even though there are clear examples that contradict that in the Pacific and the Arctic, among others. But going beyond the natural environment, and if we are to think about Indigenous knowledge to be more than just data sets and information sets about the natural environment, but just about ways of living, of being strong societies that respect what came before and that manage and that try to leave a better world for the future generations. And I think you can see the value of Indigenous knowledge across pretty much the entire portfolio of UN activities. In the different committees at the UN, you don't not just have the third committee, like you referenced, which is on human rights, but you have the Sustainable Development Committee, the second committee. You have even Disarmament Committee, the first committee, the impacts of nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction on Indigenous peoples and their ways of living. There are different ways that I think Indigenous peoples can contribute to international, intergovernmental discussions, including at the UN. And I know there's definitely, and you of course know, you're very actively involved in efforts at the UN to make sure that Indigenous peoples have a seat at the table at the UN. And I think that's very important.
I have two final questions. Final question is, anything that we didn't touch upon, or that we didn't touch upon, but you really want to share still? Thoughts, ideas, concerns, maybe?
I will say, I'm a lawyer, and one of the main reasons why I went to law school was to examine this sort of tension between customs and traditions and customary laws on the one hand, especially in the Pacific, and Western or outside legal systems on the other hand that we've imported into our governments throughout the Pacific. And it sets up a lot of tension between our customary ways of jurisprudence, of dispute resolution, and outside of approaches to those issues. This is unfortunate because most Pacific Island states, they have laws and regulations, including in their constitutions, that recognize customs and traditions, that give importance to customs and traditions, including in dispute resolution. But it's been challenging for many of these jurisdictions, including my own, including in the FSM, to operationalize those provisions in our laws and regulations and in our constitutions. We have a deep reservoir of knowledge about how to live as viable and harmonious communities with each other as well as with the natural environment that we need to tap into more regularly to resolve a lot of disputes that we tend to throw into the courts, the Western courts that we have in our islands, and that more often than not lead to even more division, even more heartache among our communities. We've kind of moved away a little bit from our traditional ways of living. And I think that's a bit unfortunate.
No, Yo, I consider you a very good representative of the Pacific region in general, not only FSM. So thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you so much for being a friend, being an ally, being Indigenous. Actually, we consider you Indigenous. I think I heard Andrea and Hindu talk about it as well. Final question is: did you watch The Mandalorian?
Of course.
Okay. Second season?
Yes, I'm all caught up.
You caught up? Okay, cool.
I think I know who the Mandalorian is at the end of the day. I think they're setting something up, man. They're setting something up.
Yeah, I have my suspicion, but like I didn't even know. Yeah, well, no, there's so many things that I don't compute with me that I'm still have to figure it out. But we'll definitely talk that in a different conversation.
By the way, sorry. Right over there at the tip of my finger, there's a baby Yoda. Right over there at the tip of my finger, at the top of the bookcase. You can't see him.
I can see it. I can see it.
You can't see Grogu. Grogu is up there.
Grogu, yeah. Yo, thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate it. And have a great day. Stay safe, stay healthy. And talk later.
Happy birthday.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, that was good. Yo.